Okay, so you should see, let's get rid of this. You can see my phone.
I can see your phone.
Okay, and so basically what you'll know you have the new release when if you go to table of contents up here at the top, you'll
Hmm.
see it's 3.0.0.
Excellent.
Um, and it's, let me go back, exit out of help. By the way, if you press and hold on the help, if you don't know that, it takes you right to the table of contents, which is useful sometimes.
I didn't
If
know
you
that.
want to,
That is cool. Yeah.
yes, if you want to go down, and you'll see our little debug here, which if you ever do use TPL, which we'll talk about a bit, um, you can enable it by going to Tools for Support, and at the bottom you can show it or hide it, that debug button, which I don't think I need to show. You've shown that before, is that right?
I have. Yep.
Yeah, so we don't need to
You have a
see that.
debugger. Yep.
And version should say so. So we have a lot of things in this new release that came out.
Great.
Um, we're now letting people know in general that TPL is there. We've added a lot to it from what was previously released in TPL. TPL is the TransForm programming language, and we also added support for on-device data specific to each account. Um, and this just gives you a lot of nice new things, some of which you've shown already, but now regular developers, Transform developers, can start doing this stuff. Um, so for example, there is the one that I think we have shown people is, let's do damage product 2 here. Let's create a new one of these. Here's damage product 2. And this is uses the Northwind database that I have loaded onto this device as an on-device database. And what I'm doing here is I'm receiving an item that was damaged and I want to get it replaced. So I scan the item that came in, and here are some barcodes. So let's take this barcode right here. And this barcode, you'll notice, has a number slash another number in it. And this gives you the, let's see, oops, oh, we don't want to scan again. Let's cancel, leave that and get out. And what we see is we now have filled out, we know from this which product and which order. So this was order ID 11030. From the order ID, this was the barcode had on it this combination. Knowing this, we were able to figure out what customer it was and the name of the customer. This is all standard using Northwind database with lots of joins and where clauses and stuff like that. Finding the product, the name of the product, and we know what the category of the product is. And is it discontinued? Well, this one is discontinued. Well, so what? I can't just send you another one of the same thing. So I can either give you a credit or I can give a substitution. If I do a substitution, then it looks up the ID. I want to find an ID of another product. So if I tap on it here, I now have a list of all the products that are not discontinued that are in condiments. It says ID in here. And it was a Cajun something else, spice or something. So let's take this other Cajun thing. And so the gumbo mix turns into the other Cajun. And so this uses the TPL system, but it also uses on-device data. So let's show you some of this.
Yeah.
So let's go here. So now, when you go to the transform, let's see. Let me close this stuff up so we don't see it. Here we go. Tiny. Good. So this is what the designer looks like. It should look very familiar to most people. It's very similar. Some minor changes. You'll see a little orange dot here, and you'll see that there's a footer on the preview. The preview now has a menu button that tells you whether you want to run TPL when you're running this, doing the preview or not, and you want to show display the preview value if there's no JSON. Otherwise, show because there's JSON in preview. What are these? I will discuss them in a second. But this gives you a little more flexibility in what you see over here in the preview. And so, for example, in this, let's look at this form down here, the language test. So language test, you'll notice it says B is 4, B factorial is 24, and B is greater than 3. Okay, so if we look at the advanced features, you see here that there's a heading template, which people may be familiar with. But the heading template now uses the syntax of TPL instead of the syntax of JavaScript. That's one of the things that has changed, is that if you're not running an older form definition that you designed before this new release came out of the builder that you're going to get later today, probably. If you didn't do it before, it'll assume that you're using the new TPL syntax rather than the pre-TPL syntax. So this uses #B to be able to show the current value of B, which is 4, and B factorial is the factorial, a user function of factorial of the value of B, and an if, just like in normal templating, but now the syntax in here is TPL syntax instead of JavaScript syntax. TPL templating is not as capable, as powerful as JavaScript templating, but it's more secure in many ways and gives you easy access, much easier access to a lot of the capabilities. The help now has in it about the TPL expressions, TPL templating, about pre-TPL syntax in case you forget how it used to work, and about the TPL editing and testing screen, which is now available to everybody that used to not be, which we'll talk about in a minute. And you'll see down here that we have, let's go back to the preview. This has initialization commands where the field called database is getting a text value of SQLite Northwind.db, which is the name of the database that is on the device. And the SQL here, there's a SQL query that's actually being done, and select star from customers or country equals question mark. So you see this, and if I look down here, I'll see that if I say look at initialization commands, I get to get these values show up here. Okay, these, if you remember, these are executed whenever you create a new form, a new instance of a form. These are executed to fill out some of the fields, and that's described in the help how that works. There's also preview data, which is JSON, and I can see that if I want, in which case now I'm getting the values here from here, and you see it's occurring up here. Or I could ask for the preview values, which are, the ones that are here in the preview values are here. Preview values have moved down to the bottom here. It says preview value, and it shows up here, but they're not actually used in calculations. These previews were never used in calculation, so these all treat everything as blank. So this gives you some control here of what you're seeing. Let me go to auto. Auto means show JSON. If JSON isn't there, then show preview. So there is a button, an action button type of command that you can put in. And the action button, we can cancel this. And if I go down here, you'll see there are lots of buttons. Like this button over here does btest confirm. That's the action name that it does, which will put up let's take a look at that. Let me go to language test, and hold on, I'll show you this in a second. Let's go here. Okay, B test confirm. I do that, and it says test and confirm. Give an answer, cancel or okay. Hit cancel, it says blank. Okay, if I do confirm and I do an okay, the answer is 1. Okay, so there's all sorts of useful one. 3 buttons, give an answer. That's 1, right? 3 buttons. This one gives you 2, etc. So these are buttons, and buttons execute TPL code, which we'll see in a second. So this is useful stuff.
So question, is the button control now one of the controls up in the form commands section?
Yes, yeah, it was just there. I just showed you. Yes, if I go here.
When you hit plus, that's
called an action button. It's called an action button. So if I go down here, you saw the action button right there.
Nice.
That's how you used to have to create it. In the early days, you had to create it manually with JSON, but now you can just put it in. You could edit it for a long time, but you can create it, because we didn't want to give the developers things that they couldn't use. You know, when I try not to tease too much. I like to provide things. I have to test it, but sure. That's why a lot of work went into this release, because this release now.
Yeah.
Let's explain this little dot here. When you have this dot, it's telling you that if you click on it, it says, we detected that you're probably a pre-TPL form definition. See advanced features below for more information. So remember to open this up, and it will tell you. It says this form type was created before TPL was available. Probably uses some things that have changed. So here's how to upgrade. And by the way, the reason we think this one has a problem is you're using the HTML command, and we may have changed the syntax on you for that. Okay. And specifically, yeah, because it uses on click and stuff like that, which we don't support. So like layout test here, it uses the head command. And if I look at, language test, well, there are all sorts of, it tells you what might be the things that you might have needed for them. So let's, what was a good one? Oh, gsample. Gsample has an if command. The if command, there's a change. It says fields dot do arith. Well, now it's # do arith to do that. There's an HTML command. There's another if, etc. So it says, why not select these? They're selectable, and then go change them all. And when you're done, tell me you've done that. Okay, so this is a way, but the old ones will continue to work fine. You don't have to upgrade. Okay, you don't have to upgrade. You can continue to edit them the way that you did. It's only new ones, or if you want to switch to a TPL, to use TPL. If you've already started using TPL, then you're already using TPL. So that's one thing. So let's look at that language test over here. One thing you can do is enable the custom code for this form type. What that does is it turns on this this button over here. If you don't turn this on, this button isn't available. We used to hide this so that we wouldn't tease you about it. If you go to edit custom code, you now see, you may have seen this. I think you, Dave, I think you showed this off at one point.
I have, yep.
Yes. So people have seen some of this.
Some of it, but if you take a look over at the all built-in functions on the right.
Yes, it's different.
Three or four.
Just like you, this hasn't changed much.
Yeah, that right.
Okay, the stuff over here hasn't changed much, except that blocks now has an add function, and you can add a new function by clicking there, and it will add one for you. You don't have to go edit the all code to get it. But if I go here and say, like, this is on change, you see that C gets, $C gets factorial of B. Let's go, what was an interesting one to look at? Let's look at that damage product 2. That's a nice one, because here, when the barcode is changed, look at all this that gets executed. First of all, let's get the index of the slash in the barcode. If the position is -1, this is very much like the index of in JavaScript, then say it's a misformatted barcode. The barcode is missing a slash and returns. Otherwise, it gets the substring of up to here to get the order ID and the product ID, and then it does what's called PhoneGap TF transform execute SQL. And this is currently the function that we're providing. We may upgrade this in the future, but it's pretty powerful. You give it the name of a database that is available on your device, and that's a separate. We'll, I guess, have to talk about that separately about how you get them on there. It's done through TransForm, through TransForm Central, through the home. You set up how to use the manifest to upload data. And you can upload all sorts of data. That I will show you in a minute because, let's see, yeah, we have enough time. Here, this is a pretty complex select statement. This is using continuation in the quoted string, and it uses these two arguments. It uses you're able to use arguments in your SQL. And then if it gets values back, then it sets the things that you need, the customer ID, the customer name, the product name, etc., which it got using this. So this is, now, how do you know how to use all these things? Except for this one, which which we'll be documenting soon. I may change the name. We have all of these functions. We have right now about 106 functions. Well, at least 107 because we haven't told you about this one yet. And they're in different groups. There are array functions, there are date functions, etc. If I want to, I can click here to just see, for example, the math functions, and they are the math functions that you got. And if you want to know specifically what one is, let's go hit the function list again, takes you to the top. Let's say like there was that message one, okay? Remember there was message show confirm, right? If I hit that plus, we now open it up and we can see displays a modal message box with a title and a body, okay? If let's say I wanted to insert that somewhere, I could go right here and I could click over here and it inserts it for you. And then you can go and fill out the stuff that you want, okay? And so this is new, okay? Let's cancel this. Other than that, it's pretty much what you saw. Oh, and there's a lot of the reference, most of the documentation that we currently have about TPL is available here. And so if you want to, for example, know what, what global data is, and form data, and all this is explained, and the different values for all these things, etc., are all here. The tester is still available, and you can go to the tester. The tester here, I can look at the preview JSON, but here's the preview itself. For this, I can say copy. Right now, here are the values. There's nothing there, but I can go to preview and say copy to execution form. And now all the stuff that was in the preview now is here ready to go for testing purposes if I want. So let's go back here. And let me show you, what is it that I wanted to show? Just to give you a few other things here, let's look at this one. This one here. Here you see that this field, let's look at it. This field is using templating. And in this templating, it says that there is an image and it has Bricklin dot and then this. This is a prefix, and the prefix is set on a per account basis, and that tells you places that you're allowed to access with image tags and some other stuff. You can also do data PNGs, and here's a data PNG that shows you the little dot over there, which is what this data PNG is. It's a PNG of a little red dot. And over here it says that there's an image, which is the source comes from the TransForm 2 on device data directory dot it gives you that is the prefix, and then using templating I look up the value of A and use that to decide what to show here. Now there is no on device data on the preview over here, but if I go back, let's see, do I still have this? Yeah, no, it lost its connection. Let me, because I'd love to show you this. Let's try that again. See if it shows up. There's a problem if I don't do this before GoToMeeting sometimes. No. And let me, with my phone, I'm going to, let's see, the phone. Does it find it? No. What I'm going to do with my phone is I will turn off Wi-Fi and then turn it back on again, and maybe it'll be nice. We'll see. There it is. Okay. This is all, doing stuff that's superstitious, right? Okay. Let's go here and let's go to, what were we looking at? A sample form. Here we go. Sample form. Same thing. You see the picture over here, the dot. But here, there is, if I put a new number in here, I happen to know that there are some pictures. Let's put in here 4. And now it picks up a different one. And this is on device data. There are files that are on this device that if I go back to here and look at home, on device data assets, and I look over here, I see here my prefixes, things that tell me when I can download, and there is this JSON thing that tells you the manifest that tells me where the files are, and it picks up those files and loads them. So let's go back to my device here, and I will show you. And then we're almost running out of time, so I'll have to take some questions. Let me go back to Tools for Support. I'm going to go to showing go into Language Test. And in Language Test, I have a thing called List Account Files. This is I have a function that's not, that I'm using internally that currently lets you do this. It has now listed the function, so I can go into debug, and let's look here. And it has now filled out files. So I can see here that there is a file called account 156, because that's who I am, /video of uselessmachine.video. It's a file. I have a thing called ECMA 262 PDF, the Northwind subset, which is a JSON. I'll show you. This is JSON text file. It's Northwind subset.json.txt, I think. And then here are all these image files that I've been able to put there. There's my SQLite database of Northwind and some others that are there. Okay. And if I go back here and let's say test SQL, look at that. It got results, and the results are a lot of an array of objects. If I go here, go to debug and look at, let's see, results, SQL results. Here it's looked up. It just did that query that I asked it for, and stuck it into the data for this running of the form. And so there's an AJAX send request, and in addition to AJAX get, there's a send request that lets you set the headers, and you can do posts and puts and stuff like that. There is PhoneGap device is now available, which is PhoneGap device is a function that returns what version of PhoneGap you're using. It's the PhoneGap device value from that plugin and it'll let you know what platform you're on, etc. So, for example, you'll know that. If I go here, let's see if I can do this. If I run function, let's function of phone gap device. Okay, so phone gap device. If I run that, you see here that I do D. D will be phone gap device, and there's should be the value of D. Let's see, there's D, and Cordova's that. It manufactures Apple. It's an iPhone XS, iOS. So that's how you can find out if you're an iOS or Android, which is kind of nice. This is not really the UDID, if you know this just as some random number, but it stays constant for the install. And then if I do this, up comes the message. Oh, but notice that I used the JSON stringify. Okay, there's a JSON parse and a JSON stringify that is useful for doing a variety of things. There's also encode URI and decode URI and URI component, which is useful when you're creating AJAX requests. Mm-hmm. So I think I'll stop at this point. Shows you we have an awful lot here.
That is awesome. Yeah, there's a lot more to show. We're going to be taking a break for a couple of weeks, but in January, man, we have got a whole lot of new stuff coming out. In the meantime, we're going to also be catching up a little bit on the documentation that goes along with this, and I'll talk a little bit about that later. But we do have just a quick question. Someone's asking, what's sort of the best way to clean up the forms that show up in your mobile apps? This person is going out in the field. They've have a lot of existing forms, and they want to clean them up so that they don't have to look through all that clutter and only look at the forms that they need to.
Over here.
I think in existing forms, just way to clean up forms on the form gap apps.
Well, the thing about existing forms is if you tap up here at the top, you can sort them by status. So there's the open ones, and you can, and I can close it. So all of them happen to be open in this case. I can do it by form type, and let's hide all. So now I know what type of forms I have. Mm-hmm. And if I just want to see my rectifier report, there it is. If I just want to see, let's say, my language test, there's my language test ones. So that can be helpful. That's one way of cleaning it up. Mm-hmm. The other thing you can do is for particular users, you can hide which forms will even download or which ones will show.
Sure.
Because that's one of the things in permissions. If you remember in permissions, you can say that can the user list it if it's in this state, well, you can, you can have a different role and say that this person isn't a user, there was something else, you can assign them, and you can basically hide certain things in terms of that.
And you could also do it based on submitted, right? You could make it so that...
Yes, on whether it's submitted or something like that. Obviously, you don't want... Well, normally I have, submitted lists it, but doesn't let you...
Doesn't let you open it. So, for example, you could say, I don't want you to even list it there. And then I believe lastly, in the management console, isn't there the notion of preventing a form instance from being downloaded to a device?
Yes, that's another thing you can do is when you've uploaded it, you can set this, prevent form filler from downloading, right?
Yep.
And if you do that, then when you next log in or
refresh of the forms,
it will be there. And what's kind of interesting about that is in the designer, when you do the submit button, let's just stick a submit at the end of, well, I can get one. There's one in the general. Let's see, right? You change form instance so that it will not download to filler. You can set this to yes.
Fantastic.
And then when it uploads it, it'll be changed. So next time you won't have it. Okay.
Nice.
So that's available.
Now that looks like a new feature for submit, or am I wrong about that?
No, that's been there forever.
Well, it's been there and I didn't even notice. So.
And it's in the help. There are all sorts of things you never think of, which I may forget, but I try to put in the help so I can get back and find it.
Well, we do have to wrap up, but I did want to let people know that an official user's guide is coming out for Alpha Transform. So beyond the online help, beyond being able to ask us questions, which you can always do by sending an email to tfservice@alphasoftware.com, an actual Transform book will be on the way shortly for those of you who like user's guides.
And
so Dan, yeah, go ahead.
Here's what I see is, look at this. It is, at least where I live, it has made it to the App Store.
Oh, fantastic. Great. Okay. So there is a new version of the killer.
We will be updating this later today. I would suggest that log out and log in again. You probably don't, you can just refresh, but I think you should log out and log back in, probably would be better, and do a refresh of, the browser refresh. Excellent. And you'll get this new version that has the stuff we're talking about here, and which tells you what TPL syntax is, etc.
Fantastic. Great. Hey, Dan, thanks very much for presenting. I really appreciate it. Thanks, everyone who attended, and for those who asked questions. If you do have questions in the meantime, send them to tfservice@alphasoftware.com. We'll be on break for a couple of weeks from Transform Tuesdays, but we are always here to read your emails and get back to you with any questions you may have. So keep those questions coming. Thanks again, and have a terrific Christmas, New Year's, and we'll see you in January. Take care, and goodbye.